Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my, why am I doing this? Like, are we celebrating? I think we are celebrating that I read 10 books in the month of June, which is so exciting. And I have my reading wrap up to share with you today. So I have all of my books sitting next to me, and I am so excited to share them with you, as well as my thoughts, mini reviews, all the things. So if you're interested, stay tuned. For if you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I would love if you'd consider doing so before moving on. I am trying to post at least one video a week, and then I do also have a main makeup channel in case you guys like all things beauty as well. I'll leave that link down below. But other than that, let's get into my June reading wrap up. All right, I just want to start by going over how many books I was able to complete off of my June TBR, and I did read 7 out of the 10 books that I wanted to read, or that were on my June TBR. And I have decided that if I read at least 50% of my TBR, I'm going to allow myself to then, if I want to, purchase up to 50% amount, up to 50% of the total amount of books that I read. So I have to, one, complete 50% of my TBR to begin with, and then I will allow myself to purchase up to half of the amount of books that I finished. So I finished 10 books, so I can buy 5 books. Technically, I don't have to. But if I had read 10 books, but only read 3 that were on my physical TBR, then I wouldn't be allowing myself to buy any books. Now, I did just do a large summer book haul, so I'll leave that linked. Girl doesn't need to be buying any books in the near future. I do feel like I started my month out pretty slow. I feel like I got to like halfway through the month and I had only read like 3 or 4 books, and I was like, I am not having a good like reading month in terms of actually finishing books. And I was like, I am not gonna read but 5 or 6 books this month. But then the last like week or two, I like smashed through quite a few. So let's get into the first book that I read in the month of June, and that was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. This, I ended up rating 3 stars. This was just a really fun time. This book definitely did not take itself seriously, so I feel like if you're looking for just a good, lighthearted time, maybe something quick, fun, and easy to read by the pool or on a summer vacation, something that is like a little bit, not a little bit, there definitely was some spice and some steam to this. Definitely not as much as I personally was expecting, but it was still really fun. I would recommend this book. I will say, I feel like I've gotten extremely picky with like my, especially like 4 and above, 4-star and above. Like I've gotten extremely picky. And with this, I think I maybe rated this a 3.5 star. I feel like this is a 3.5 because a 3-star to me, I know everyone's like, oh, a 3-star is actually good. I feel like a 3-star to me was kind of like, I don't know that I feel like that was maybe like a wee bit of a waste of my time. Like 2-star and below, like I'm like angry. This was a fun time. I don't know that I'm like instantly looking to continue on in this series, but this worked for a fun, fluffy summer read. So in this book, you are following Cinnamon, and she basically like gets drunk and then finds herself in this situation where she basically, I don't even know if she owes the demon a favor, but she like agrees to do something for this demon that she encounters. And the entire time that they go on this quest, she's hoping that he like doesn't kill her, and she like essentially ends up having a thing with the demon. I don't know, it was like fun, but I also don't know if I'm like the questy girl. Like I don't know if the quests are my vibe. I don't know if for me this was just a 3.5 star. That's all it was. Really probably won't think about this book much since after putting it down, but again, maybe it would. I was like, it would have to be the right time, right place. Like just, I honestly, like if I want something mindless and just fun to, again, kind of sit by the pool and read, I would pick up the other 2 books in this series, but it wasn't like I'm gonna be thinking about this on my drive home from work. All right, the second book I read was Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. I love Annabelle Monaghan. I actually am listening to her newest book, Summer Romance, this morning actually, and I'm just like, if this book doesn't end up being a 5-star read, like I am just loving every moment of it. But this book I ended up rating a 4.25, and this is where I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting even pickier and even pickier. What I really like about Annabelle Monaghan's writing is she is just like, her books are just short, simple and sweet, but I feel like so much happens in the short amount of time. Like you can read these books in a day, easy, like a really quick, like honestly, even like an afternoon at the beach, but it feels like you get so much information in these short amount of pages that the information is written on. I would also be curious to know if Annabelle Monaghan has gone through like a divorce or like her backstory, because I just feel like she captivates like failing relationships really well, but also writes these really, really sweet like other relationships that are happening. I loved Nora Goes Off Script, and I really, really like Same Time Next Summer as well. So in this book, you are following Sam, and she basically has this like picturesque life. She's engaged to be married to Jack, and essentially like they have this, as she describes it, it's like blah, 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 perfect, blah, 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 perfect, blah, 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 perfect. Like essentially she should think of her life as this like perfect life, but it seems like there's just like something missing. So she and Jack go visit her basically childhood, I don't want to call it like a cabin, but her family would go to Long Island every summer, and her and Jack go to visit Long Island to see if they potentially would want to have their wedding there. And Sam's summer fling like from childhood ends up being there, and she basically like they had a falling out, and there's like unresolved feelings there. You can tell she still like really cares for him, but thinks like he doesn't love her, and this whole time you're kind of figuring out like why they had this falling out. And I will say the reason for their falling out was completely unexpected and caught me completely off guard, and I feel like was something so different for a book, like not something I've ever read as like a reason for their falling out. So it was really like fun to see something just like totally different. And I just absolutely love this. I absolutely ate this up. I loved the romance. I will say I think I preferred Nora Goes Off Script just a little bit, and the summer romance that I'm reading right now by her is set to be my favorite of all three. But I still think this is worth reading. I still gave this a 4.25 star. Highly recommend her books, especially if you're looking for something just like fun, simple, and easy to read, but like it's just like a feel-good read. So I'm so glad that I got to that one. All right, then I tackled this baby finally, Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. Just like so hard to like sit here and think that Magnolia and BJ's story has like come to an end, at least from their perspective. This book was definitely very, very different from their first two books in just all that this dealt with. This was a 5-star read for me. I can't really say a lot about it because it is the third book in like their telling, as well as the 5th book in this series, but like, oh, it's so good. The growth and character development both for Magnolia and BJ. I will say Magnolia still like drives me nuts from time to time, although I know she's literally going through so much in this book, but like BJ's growth, like so good. Okay, I have been putting off reading this next book for so long. I actually ended up listening to this on audiobook, and I had so much fun with it. I instantly downloaded the next book in this series. This is Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun, and I will say I've always enjoyed reading the Finley Donovan books. They're really comical, really funny, really short, and I'm kind of mad at myself for putting this off for so long. I think this might be, it's definitely between this and book number 1, but this might be my new favorite book of all three of them. So in this book, you are following Finley and mostly Finley and Vero, which this is the 3rd book in the Finley Donovan series. In the first book, Finley Donovan, you find out that Finley Donovan is this recently divorced, or going through divorce at that time, woman, and she is an author, and she's sitting at a Panera with her agent, basically like telling her her ideas for her next like mystery suspense novel, but also like smutty novel. And someone overhears her at the table next to her and thinks that Finley Donovan is actually like a hitman, and so she basically hires her to hit her husband and take him out. And it's like what has ensued since is just so fun and comical, and I just, for a feel-good cozy mystery, feel-good time, I just could not recommend the Finley Donovan series enough. I ended up giving this a 4.5. There was just something missing from this that didn't make it quite a 5-star, but I still absolutely loved this book, and it just made me fall even more in love with Finley and Vero. They're just honestly hilarious, and if you were looking for a fun time, I couldn't recommend this series enough. All right, Then I finished True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. I had started reading this earlier this year and just hadn't finished it. And so I finally bit the bullet and finished this book. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 star. I enjoyed my time with this. It definitely was like, I don't feel like it was a waste of time reading, but it's not something I can see myself rereading, and I definitely much preferred Love in Other Words, but this was still fun. This is about, I'm like, what were their names even? That's where I'm like, okay, this is about Felicity, she goes by Fizzy, Chen, who is an author, and then Connor Prince, who is a documentary filmmaker. They have, like, they know each other. They have like a history where they know each other, and essentially Connor is a documentary filmmaker, and he makes these like serious documentaries, but then the company that he works for is like, no, we actually want to make a reality TV show because that's where the money's at, and they hire him to be the producer for it. So he's like, I know the perfect girl to be like the host of, essentially like The Bachelorette is like similar to what they're doing. And so he hires Felicity Chen. Then they're spending all this time together for the show and essentially like fall in love with each other. I mean, obviously it is a romance, and so it's them like navigating that. I don't know, this was like really entertaining. It wasn't like the deepest, most engrossing book of life, but I'm glad that I read it. All right, then I finally read The Bodyguard by Catherine Senner, and I ended up giving this a 4.5 star. This is again where I feel like I'm getting even more picky. Like as I was finishing this book, I'm like, oh, is this gonna be a 5 star? And then I was like, no, it just didn't leave me with that absolute 5-star feeling like the Magnolia Parks series does. But this is such a cute, fun book. In this book, you are following Hannah Brooks and Jack. Hannah Brooks, or Hannah, is the bodyguard in this case to Jack. And what I love about this book is this kind of reminded me of like an Abby Jimenez book where there was this cute little fluffy romance like happening, but also there was like a lot of deeper or like heavier topics that were covered, and I just was so entertained the whole time that I was reading this book. I read this book in less than 24 hours, and I'm so mad at myself that I waited so long to read this book. I'm really excited to read her newest book. I believe it's called The Rom-Commers. I don't know if I'm going to read Hello Stranger just because I feel like that one wasn't received very well, but I've heard nothing but good things about The Rom-Commers, and I just ate this book up. It was so fun, flirty, cute, and just so sweet and wholesome, yet covered these like heavier topics, and I just felt like this book was extremely relatable in so many ways as well. So I couldn't recommend this one enough, especially if you like Abby Jimenez and you like that she has like a romance with like some deeper topics or some deeper touch points happening here or there. I highly recommend this book. All right, and then I read Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher, and I freaking loved this book as well. I ended up giving this a 4.75. It just, again, did not quite leave me with that total 5-star feeling, but I loved this book. In this book, you are following Julian and Dahlia, and they also have a bit of a history. It kind of reminded me of the history from Wild Love, and where they were like basically childhood family friends that grew up together, that they're not like enemies, but they like basically like gave each other shit is what I'm gonna say, but then they act like this whole enemy situation. But anyway, in this book, you find out that both of their fathers have passed away, so that's like something that they have in common. But Julian has taken over his father's company, where he is not a construction worker, but basically like tears down homes and builds new ones. And then Dahlia, you find out, is an interior designer. She has this whole show. She has a fiance, and then you find out she recently is disengaged from her fiance. And again, this also touches on heavier topics. I would check trigger warnings for this one, but just the way that the two characters were kind of there for one another, you really come to hate the ex-fiance of Dahlia. And Julian is just, oh, he is such an acts of service kind of person, which isn't necessarily my love language, but I ate up every moment of their romance. So sweet, so cute, and I'm really excited to get to the next book in that series, which just released. Then I finished Abby Jimenez Just for the Summer. Loved this so freaking much. I will say, I think Part of Your World, out of the 3 interconnected standalones in this series, is my personal favorite. I still really really loved this one. In this book, you were following Justin and Emma, who believe that they have the same curse. And that curse is that after they break up with someone, the person that they broke up with goes on to meet their soulmate. And so the two of them kind of strike up this deal where if they date each other and they have these like terms to their dating, and then go their separate ways, that they each will meet their soulmate. This is set in Minnesota, which I'm a Minnesota girly, so all the little like sprinklings of Minnesota things I just absolutely ate up and loved so much. But again, with Abby Jimenez's writing, she has a romance, but it's almost like, especially in this one, like, yes, the romance was the main focus, but it's almost like split evenly with like these deeper topics. And I just really appreciate that because it feels like I'm getting something a little bit more out of my reading experience. And both of these characters are just going through so much. Justin is just pure perfection, but I also really enjoyed Emma as well. I will say there were some moments where Emma, I was like, okay, girlfriend, like we need to like actually get it together and like support Justin a little bit more. But oh my gosh, Justin would like send out these cute little like surveys before their dates to be like, what do you want to do on our date? Do you want it to be casual? Do you want it to be formal? And I was like, oh my gosh, he's so sweet. I absolutely love this book. I did give it a 4.75. It again just didn't quite leave me with a 5-star feeling. And I think that's just because I loved Part of Your World just a little bit more. But I will say I have thought about this more after finishing this, and I'm like, okay, maybe we'll see where I sit at the end of the year. Maybe I would change this to a 5-star, but I feel like I'm just being so picky. But you know, if it just doesn't, if you don't finish the book and you're not like, okay, oh, but it maybe, I don't know. As of right now, 4.75 for that one. All right, the biggest disappointment of the entire month was This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. This book was like making me angry because I was so excited to read this, and this just felt like a complete waste of my time. And I'm so sorry if you like have read this book and actually like it. I did not enjoy this. I gave this a generous 2 stars. In this book, you were following Lucy and Felix and Bridget, who is Felix's sister. And what you find out at the very beginning of the book, which literally is written on the back, so it's not a spoiler, it's that Lucy flies out to meet Bridget like on this, wherever her like we're gonna call it a cabin vacation home is. She gets there a night before Bridget, and she ends up like hooking up with this guy who works at a bar or restaurant, and then she finds out it's Lucy's brother. Lucy's brother said when she's out on the island she has 3 rules, one of them being she can't fall in love with Felix, and so blah blah blah. And then like it goes back and forth, like then and now. Like the now is that Bridget is set to be married, and she calls Lucy and Felix out to the island like early, like a week before her wedding, but like won't tell them what's happening, won't tell them what's wrong, won't tell them what's going on for like the entirety of the book. And there's just literally nothing happening in the book. Like you're kind of finding out then stuff, but like I feel like all you're finding out about then stuff is like that Lucy and Felix have been hooking up for 5 years, but there's like no deep, like supposedly these two have a connection beyond just like banging one another, which like trust me, I love a spicy book, but I like more than just like a one night, like it, even though it wasn't a one night stand, I'm like, what do they have in common? Like I'm just lost, I'm confused. And I felt like I read 320 plus pages of just like, oh, they just are physically attracted to one another. And then when you find out the reason that Bridget is like being weird, I'm like, did we actually spend the whole book thinking one thing for it to be this, like, I get it's like kind of a big thing, but like not really. I was like, is this actually, okay, that actually just scraped my eye. Ow, that book would do that. 2 stars, would not recommend that. Waste of time. And I'm annoyed because I bought Every Summer After, and I'm like, should I even read that now? I don't know. All right, and then the last book I read this month was Reputation by Sarah Vaughn. This has been on my physical TBR for quite some time now, and I ended up listening to this book. I will say, I think if I read this book, it would have taken me a while, or I probably would have DNF'd it, but listening to it was really entertaining. I gave this book a 4 star. It was really good. It was definitely it was definitely slow to start, and I would check trigger warnings for this book as well. My favorite parts of this book were when they were in the courtroom. I did really enjoy like the courtroom. I love courtroom anything. So I really liked that, and it definitely touched on some deeper, it was a really interesting book. It was only 325 pages, but I literally feel like there was like 800 pages worth of information tucked into this short book. Like I feel like so much happened in this book. In this book, we were mostly following Emma, who is an NP in the UK, London, which is kind of like a political leader. And there's so much. Something happens between her, I don't want to say too much, but I don't know what I can even say. It's a lot, but it's really good. And if you like courtroom drama, if you like stuff in the courtroom, if you like political scandal, I think you would really enjoy this book. There's just a lot packed into this book. I personally would recommend the audiobook. I had a really good experience with that. Again, 4 stars, a good way to end the month, and definitely a bounce back from this piece of trash. So those were the 10 books that I read in the month of June. I would love to know in the comments below what books you read this past month, what were good, what were favorites, what should I stay away from, what do I need to add to my summer TBR. Let a girl know in the comments below. Other than that, thanks so much for sticking around to watch this video and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.